about disabled people finding success. Stories from Aotearoa's disabled community. Their journey, your voice, my future. My Rhythm, My Ride, a podcast by My Life, My Voice, hosted by Kylie Black. Hello and good morning, everyone. We are here with My Rhythm, My Ride, a podcast by My Life, My Voice, and we are here today with Tim Young, who is the CEO of My Life, My Voice and the startup lead for Smart Access. And we are absolutely stoked to have you here and join us today, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure and it's an honour. We are having a really open and honest discussion about what it looks like behind the scenes of leadership and learning from the journey of those who are doing it. How did you get where you got and how do you do what you do? And so I wondered if you could tell me a bit about yourself and your journey and how you've come to where you are today.
Cool, yeah. Ko Taranaki Te Maunga, ko Maunganui Te Awa, ko Ngāti Mahuta Te Mana Whenua, e tipua haua kirikiri rawa, kei Ngaro Wahia e noho ana ahau, e tipua hau e kirikiri, ko Tim Young toku ingoa. So my family comes from the Taranaki region and I grew up in Hamilton and I now live in Ngaro Wahia with my wife and young son. So we have a lot of fun out here. Bit about my background. So I did a Master of Science in Psychology, but after kind of realizing that professional pathway wasn't accessible and there weren't many accommodations in the workplaces I wanted to go, I developed an educational video game to try and create some opportunities for myself and start a business that I could do from home. And then I ran for Hamilton City Council in 2019, and some great opportunities came from that. Luckily, I didn't get elected, otherwise I wouldn't be where I am now, so I'm pretty happy about that. But I got to a point where I could kind of put forward my platforms and my priority areas, and a lot of them have been followed anyway, which is great. And then I helped develop Mahi Tika, Equity and Employment for DPA and MSD, Disabled Persons Assembly and Ministry of Social Development. And then about around the same time, I started Smart Access when I saw a gap in the use of data by councils to prioritize infrastructure spending objectively rather than waiting for kind of often people in richer neighborhoods with more time on their hands to complain about infrastructure rather than looking things objectively where the greatest need was. And so I'm still doing that with a lot of my time, and then also being chief executive of My Life, My Voice for a year and 5 days, I think. It's just got over a year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Still here. And then I'm also a co-founder and vice chair of Magical Bridge Playground, which we're building our first playground in Claudelands, and that will be done. Should be opening 1st or 2nd of December.
So exciting. I have been watching that unfold and I am really excited to join you guys for the opening.
Yes, we're looking forward to having you and lots of other community members.
Yeah. I think that's a real stake in the ground and legacy thing, actually.
Mm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We've been telling my son that I'm building it just for him, so he thinks it's he thinks it's a real dad thing for Jasper, but we'll tell him the truth when he's older.
So what does something like that mean for you?
It's really exciting. It's at the moment there are a few playgrounds that have parts of them that are accessible that I can go and do stuff with Jasper, but they're relatively new, those playgrounds too, that have the rubber matting rather than being lifted up on bark and, segregating disabled people from non-disabled. So, like symbolically it's huge, but personally knowing, now that I've got a kid and we embarked on this before we'd even conceived Jasper, but I knew we would have kids or hoped we would have kids eventually and knew that, as things currently stood, I wouldn't be able to interact with them like other parents would.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, really exciting that we're gonna be able to do that. You know, this playground isn't just for disabled kids or wheelchair
mm,
using kids. It's you know, kids with sen- you know, neurodiversities, blind, low vision, deaf. There's something for everyone, and it's for older people and
mm,
disabled parents to be able to say
mm.
non-disabled kids. So yeah, we're really excited just that it's like the first playground that I've seen that's built from the ground up with everyone in mind.
And I have heard a very special, very, very cool secret addition to this playground recently, which is I had seen online recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. A communication board that anyone
Yeah.
can engage with as well. And it normalizes
Mm.
all disability, but it shows that able-bodied kids can use it, disabled kids can use it, disabled, like everyone can use it. I can take my niece there and engage fully in the playground with her, as opposed to sitting on the sidelines or being like, I'm watching you from here. Or my friend's child who I look after and help out with sometimes, and I can't chase him around the playground or keep an eye on him close enough because he can get to places that I can't get to. So I can't
Yeah.
go to the playground with him on my own. And he's like, come up here, Auntie, come up here. And I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's in every section there should be something for everyone, and anyone can get anywhere, and it's fully fenced, so you don't have to be chasing the bolters.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, we're calling it. I'm not sure why it's called a core board. We've been calling it a core board, but that's
mm,
another name for it.
mm,
And you know, even for non-disabled
mm,
children,
mm.
the comprehension comes much earlier than the ability to
Yeah,
communicate them. So that's
yeah.
really cool for everyone. Yeah.
Um, So this is a bit of a sideways slant from what we had initially talked about. But how do you start out doing? How do you even take something like that and start? Like, how do you take something from the idea or something that's overseas and implement something like that? I mean, it takes, I imagine, huge funding, a huge organization. You've got to work with council, and I'm sure you're running for a council and being involved in that helped. Like, but how would someone wanting to set up something or seeing the need, how do you begin to feel something like that?
Yeah, it can seem so big if you're thinking
Mm,
about from the beginning to the
mm,
end, it's a massive leap. So I always think it's like trying it's good to have the end in mind, but
mm,
think about all the little things you can do in the meantime. It makes it
mm,
less overwhelming.
mm,
Um, so I my other projects I'm like spending most of my time, but this our chair Peter Van Vroonhoven has
mm,
done like the lion's share of the work, and then
mm,
another board member is our playground designer.
mm,
But basically, Peter, myself, and Joy Ho, we got together,
mm,
and you know, we wanted to make this happen. So then
mm,
we just started calling up our contacts. We had some contacts in council, but otherwise,
mm,
if you didn't have any contacts in council, most council members are pretty open to
mm,
talking to community members. You just
mm,
kind of often need to find the right one. So you
mm,
might start a community, and then they'll introduce you to someone in playgrounds,
mm,
and you're just having conversations. This is what we want. This is the model we've seen that works overseas. Starting to get funding ideas. This is how much it's going to cost. So it's just breaking all those things down. Like even you can even ask ChatGPT now to ask you what are the steps I would need to
mm,
build a playground, and honestly, like you know, that would probably give you a pretty good idea of where to start, and it's just
mm,
chipping away
mm,
and working towards the goal a little bit every week. You know,
mm,
every couple of days, just doing a little something. One email
mm,
will get you further than you realize.
mm. How long has this process been from inception, from conception of the idea to starting it to being where you are now?
I think 3 years. I think 2020. So I ran in 2019,
Mm,
and then the start of 2020, Peter, myself, and Joy were
mm,
had come across the Magical Bridge Playground and shared it on social media.
mm,
Decided to get together, and then you know, over that first year, I think we had like maybe not an official memorandum of understanding with
mm,
Hamilton City Council, but pretty close to it. They
mm,
wanted to see the same thing, and we needed to just kind of get a bit more funding
mm,
under our belts. Then we reached out to Trust Waikato and
mm,
Lions, these other well-known
mm,
lottery things. Started with the big funders that would, be able to do a decent
mm,
chunk, and then when we started getting some commitments, it must have been 2021, and then
mm,
2022 we had. Yeah, so it must have been end of 2021 we started getting some pretty decent commitments from councils and big organizations.
mm,
Really knew it was rolling, and we split
mm,
the project 3 stages so that we said,
mm,
hey, even if we can't do stage 3, we can do stage 1 that will cost this much money.
mm,
2022, most of the design would have been
mm,
going on while we were trying to figure out if we could afford stage 2 at the
mm,
same time as stage 1, which
mm,
we could, and
mm.
yeah, we haven't been able to quite afford stage 3 yet, but yeah, just so about 3 years, and yeah, it's been a decently long journey, but we're getting to the point now where other councils are becoming interested in
Cool.
similar things, even if it's just part of
Mm,
a bigger playground
mm.
and different consulting. So yeah, it's really starting to snowball.
And a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah, a lot. Like Peter and Georgina have done heaps and heaps of work behind the scenes.
Mm,
Um, and we have board meetings every 2 to 4 weeks and
mm,
do the odd email in between as well. It's been
mm,
pretty ongoing, but yeah,
mm,
lots going on, but
mm,
it's achievable for people in other parts of the country.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. So if someone wanted a playground, who would they contact if they
So
wanted
we
to
could
see a playground in their community?
So you need some level of community support and
Mm,
momentum to say to the council, these all these people want to see it, and if you
mm,
kind of get half a dozen or 3 to 6 advocates
mm,
together in a meeting with council and
mm,
say this is what we want, and
mm,
either Magical Bridge or yourself can pull that together.
mm,
um, so you could reach out to Magical Bridge. We have a website, magicalbridge.co.nz,
mhm,
or on Facebook.
mm,
Um, but if anyone, we just want to see more inclusive playgrounds. We don't care if we do it.
yeah.
And so it's it's finding the right people to talk to and having you need some community
Mm,
push behind it for
mm,
them to think that that's actually something that's going to be popular.
cool. I can
Yeah.
imagine that wouldn't be difficult for most communities.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a huge demand out there.
Mm. So that's one thing that you're involved in.
Yep.
Um, so tell me about smart access and
Yeah.
how do you set up your own tech company and how do you manage that while also working other jobs and being involved in other spaces? Because on top
Mm.
of that, in the meantime, you've also become a dad and you've got a partner and that takes time and energy as well and then you've got your disability as well. So um, for those who did you want to talk about your disability or
Yep.
smart access
Yep.
first?
Yeah. So I can kind of talk about both. So
Mm,
I started Smart Access, um, of ongoing since my accident. I've always kind of been. I had my psychology thing, so I
mm,
leaned into that, and I was trying to get a job in that, and
mm,
from that and other experiences, it's just blindingly obvious the amount of barriers that you come up against and the
mm,
amount of opportunities that you miss out on.
mm.
Um,
Because of
from
access issues.
because of access issues
Mm,
and how the world is designed,
mm,
um, and the data that's available for me to see where barriers are, and how decision makers can better better improve that. So I kind
mm,
of work from first principles, which is a bit boring for some people, but I think it gets to the heart of the issue
mm,
is like
mm,
what would actually improve this,
mm,
and so speaking to decision makers for my council run, and even throughout the council run,
mm,
there were times that I couldn't do what the other candidates were doing,
mm,
because and that was embarrassing for the council, but it was also a good public reminder of the
mm,
need of these things.
mm,
Um, and so yeah, I decided to c- just get at the root of the problem and collect more data, and I
mm,
advocated for this for months before council wasn't showing an interest, so I thought, okay, well, I'll just do it then.
mm,
And I kind of found a cheap solution to begin with. I think, some people when they start a tech company,
mm,
they'll go, okay, what do we need for the proper end product? Be
mm,
hundreds of thousands of dollars, or
mm,
well, that's too hard, or
mm,
they'll try to cap raise and they might get lucky and get enough money to do
mm,
that. Especially being disabled and not having a lot of money and kind of being when you're disabled, you're always kind of trying to figure out how you can make do with what you have,
mm,
and use things in different ways. You get quite creative and you get that kind of number eight mentality to make things work. And so I found a cheap app that would allow me to drop pins on a map,
mm,
and that's all you needed. I was like, okay, well, I can see where the barriers are, and can I attach a photo to that? Yes. And then from there, I decided that would make do for now, and start trying to get some customers. And then I saw there was a good stuff grant from TSB, and applied for that and got $20,000 from that. And so that was, that you got to put yourself out there, and you just kind of,
yeah,
if there's an opportunity, you just have to go for it. You don't even think about it.
yeah,
And kind of having that kind of growth mindset and that confidence behind you, even though you might not succeed, you just
mm,
confidence to try and not care if
mm,
you fail because you've tried.
mm,
Um, and things work out, I think, when you have that attitude.
mm,
Um, Not always. You need some luck, of course, but
mm,
I got that $20,000, which allowed me to develop the app and kind of get started. And then I went to a number of council. We just did cold emails,
mm,
random cold emails. We didn't have
mm,
connections at other councils, so
mm,
somehow got my foot in the door at
mm,
Wellington and Hobart and a few other
mm,
councils, and that's kind of been how I developed it. Then we had enough revenue to keep things going. And a lot of research, you just got to keep,
mm,
if you don't know something, you research it, and you
mm,
just have to kind of do it yourself. But
mm,
yeah, and so my disability, just
mm,
briefly, so I
mm,
broke my neck boarding in Canada
mm,
in 2009.
mm,
Now I'm a C5 6 tetraplegic, so I
mm,
have any hand movement, and I've got kind of half my arms. I've got my biceps, but not my triceps.
mm,
And so, not only am I a wheelchair user, I'm kind of a higher level, one of the highest levels that would still use a manual wheelchair,
mm,
which gives me a pretty good insight into the challenges of terrain and the environment, and so I started with that, but then so that gave me kind of the first 10 variables that we collect data on of
mm,
what's useful for me.
mm,
And then I just did really extensive community consultation
mm,
with lots of disabled friends that I'd met through my council run.
mm.
And now we're at about 38 variables, and that's basically everything we've been able to identify that could affect someone's personal mobility.
Amazing.
Um, and so that's kind of how my disability and journey has related to Smart Access.
Mm. How, so you got the grant. How did you find out about the grant? Like, where do people go to find grants like that? And did that grant pay for the technology that you needed, or did that help fund your your time and hours to be able to do that? And um, in when you started getting contracts and stuff, like how did you know how to revenue or place your time and value and what you needed for that?
Yeah. So first one for that grant, I can't. It was kind of a public what do you call it, project that they put out,
Mm,
TSB. So I think someone may have sent it to me on Facebook or
yeah.
something, or come across it. That was just luck of the draw. There's not too many of those kind of random grants
Mm,
out there from companies that are trying to support good things on the community.
mm,
Um, so other popular ones are obviously like Lotto and stuff. You can
mm,
just search what grants are out there, Google
mm,
search,
mm,
and they'll come up. And
mm,
I guess the hard part with grants is trying to figure out each one kind of has an angle where they'll be, okay, we're supporting these things but not these
mm,
things, and that's kind of a tricky thing to figure out. And
mm,
then, okay, well, that's actually not open for another 6 months, and so grants are quite tricky. And you just have to keep your eyes open.
mm.
We've recently got a good one from Waka Kotahi for an innovation grant to help develop our navigation system for the app. So
Cool.
that was awesome as well.
Are you a
And in terms
business or a charity or a social enterprise or
of yeah, well,
business?
but it's a social enterprise. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, we need. I think
So there are
so.
grants out there for business.
There are some, yeah, there are more for charities, yeah.
Mm.
And so My Life, My Voice is a charitable organization. There's pros and cons for either way. When
Mm.
you're a charity, you have to be sustainable from
Mm.
grants and contracts from government, those
Mm.
sorts of things.
Mm.
For Smart Access, I kind of wanted it to try be a bit more sustainable with its own income streams.
Mm.
What was the other question,
So
sorry?
how did you manage the funding side of things? Like, did that funding go towards your technology and stuff, or did that support you
Oh,
to
yeah.
live?
No, it just went to the technology.
Yeah.
It went, yeah, all to the technology, which was really hard. I, we were at the time we were, yeah, pretty poor and just trying to
Mm.
like make our way. And
Mm.
it's hard. It's hard when it's a gamble when you already kind of have, this you kind of have the scarcity poverty mindset
Mm.
when you don't have much income coming in.
Mm.
I was on 80% of minimum wage
Mm.
from an ACC loss of potential earnings at the
Mm.
time. So just trying to get by. I think I was working for Mahi Tika for DPA at that
Mm.
point, so I had some income coming in, but it
Mm.
wasn't. It was like 20 hours a week because I needed to focus on Smart Access as well. So
Mm.
you know, it's hard. It's not for everyone
Mm.
because there is a bit of a gamble involved.
Mm.
But personally, I felt like I didn't have much of a career at that point, and
Mm.
so I felt like this was giving myself work experience that would be useful in a
Mm.
future career. I'd be able to get, even if this failed, I'd have the skills.
Mm.
I would have had spent time developing the skills I needed to be successful in other
Mm.
organizations as well, which is actually kind of how I got into My Life, My Voice. I wouldn't have had that experience
Mm.
to run My Life, My Voice without running my own company. So yeah, that
So
was
mm.
yeah, worked out.
How did you get involved in My Life, My Voice, and how did you become the CE? How does someone become a CE
Yeah,
of a company?
yeah. So I think two things. One, I had the experience of um, Smart Access in my
Mm.
previous education these days, which was the video game.
Mm.
I'd also run my own carer team, which I have 4 to 6 carers for 18 hours a day. I'm very lucky to be on ACC and have that support. Um, and so that takes a lot, and some organizations don't value that experience in itself, but
But it counts. You
I
learn
totally
so much. You literally become your own employer of your own support
totally
staff to live your life.
I know, and it's not just doing like organizing for people to do 8-hour shifts. That's
Nope.
most of the day I need to cover.
Mm.
And so luckily My Life, My Voice, being a disabled lead organization, valued that experience as well.
Cool.
Um, and so, yeah, I guess like, one, aligning your values with an organization that will
Mm.
appreciate it is key,
Mm.
and has kind of been a more recent phenomenon that we have disabled lead organizations and organizations that
Mm.
really value lived experience. So
Mm.
it wouldn't have been possible probably 10 years ago, potentially,
Mm.
to not just be tokenized and put in a position, that
Mm.
and actually really valued for that. So I think that's quite a key part of it. Just being like really confident in myself. So I was on the board of My Life, My Voice, and I got that just from Jerry shoulder tapping me because there'd been other forums that we were part of
Mm.
where I'd come up with good ideas and stuff,
Mm.
and so I think she'd just and those I was putting myself out there. I was in a meeting with you actually,
Mm.
the first time I met you, I think, around the council run, and we had
Mm.
a sit down with Minister Sepuloni.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, here's my time to shine. So I wrote down like a list of all these ideas of things like tangible ways that the government could improve the life of disabled people. And I don't know if it was really for that. I think they wanted some ideas, but you just bold and you just go for it. And I was like, all right. And you kind of put your name on the map a little bit. And all those little things, you never know when they're going to lead to something, but
No.
they always work out in the end. You build more connections, and
Mm.
so that's how I got on the board. And then our past business manager left, and we didn't have like a lot of time to
mm,
find someone new while,
mm,
advertising and doing a decent handover. So,
mm,
um, first off, the board kind of looked around and was there anyone here that
mm,
might be interested? And at that time, I was halfway through my PhD, but they were it's a long story, but it was linked to Smart Access, and they were looking at like wanting some of the intellectual property. So I was not that keen on that, and then this opportunity came up, and so I just made a case for myself, and I just said, look, I have some ideas about the organization, and I have this much time, and I think I could do a good job. Um, and if not, then we'll find someone else. I just want the
mm,
best for the organization.
mm,
And yeah, and so far it's been going really well. It's been really, really challenging, balancing all the time that I need for my different projects and my family, like you said. But I think I'm getting there now. We've kind of we've promoted some other people to take some responsibilities,
mm,
and I've kind of found, really comfortable now doing the things I need to do
mm,
for the business to
mm,
survive and thrive, and with family, I just have to prioritize them when they come home. I let people on the call know that it's going to get loud and I'm going to head off soon. Yeah, it's really challenging, but I think just being like really honest with yourself about what's needed
mm.
to be successful, and honest with other people around you about what you need in those times to be successful is really key. Just being open and communicative.
How do you do that? And obviously, there are challenges. There are deadlines, there are pressures from other people, there are pressures from Smart Access, there are pressures from My Life, My Voice, there are pressures from the magical playground at times, I imagine. There's a lot of demands of your time and spaces, there's family. And I often think of it like we talk a lot about work life balance. But I think for
Mm,
disabled people, there's a third division. There's work life and disability. And
yeah.
so I feel like we start with a third less than our
Yes.
able-bodied counterparts before we even get up for the day, because you've got for some people you've got pain, you've got fatigue, you've got medication management, you've got things that happen, you've got having to navigate the extra time of your disability and not just being able to jump out of bed and jump in a shower.
Mm,
You've got managing your support staff, you've got managing those dynamics and relationships and people.
yeah.
And then sometimes life doesn't happen how we want, plan, or even expect it to. We have an infection, or we have an injury, or you find yourself in hospital. Like, how have you learnt to manage and navigate those complexities, and how do you do that well?
Mm. Um, every day is different,
Mm,
obviously, but it is hard. I think at times there's been times where I've had too much on,
mm,
and I just again I need to be honest about that and to
mm,
myself and to other people and be like,
mm,
okay, I'm actually really struggling at the moment to keep up with
mm,
all of this. What
mm.
responsibilities can I delegate to other people? Um,
Amazing.
people people can't always do that for their own life, and that's really
Mm,
challenging when you're the only one that's really
mm,
responsible for your support workers and
mm,
for you to keep yourself healthy
mm,
and in a general good well-being. But
mm,
in terms of like running an organization, or there's obviously people that you can delegate certain things to. Yeah, like last year I was in hospital like 3 times in 2 weeks, and that was really challenging. And then during that time, one of my support workers left, and I was just like, it was really, really hard. And yeah, I just like made sure people got paid was the
mm,
first thing, and then kind of just made them organize themselves for a little
mm,
bit. I was like, can you just make sure someone's able to
mm,
help me, and like, can you guys sort
mm,
it out between you? And
mm,
family stepped up and would be ringing
mm,
different
mm.
people.
Is
And I
mm,
just like yeah, like just I guess just honesty with yourself is really key about like what you can and can't do, and what you need others. But obviously, like you can't do it without a support system as well.
mm,
Um, I just I just need people to help me.
mm,
That's like just something that's always been hard to get used to is like
mm,
losing your independence and
mm,
not being like I've got four or five support
mm,
people each week that I
mm,
rely on to be able to
mm.
even get out of bed, let alone
Because
do anything beyond that.
it doesn't matter. And this is, I think, one of the things I struggled with a lot in my own journey is that when I was starting up my own business, trying to find business mentors and people that understood, I had someone say to me, "You should have a launch date." And I'm like, if I don't have a launch date, I have a launch goal. They're like, "You have to have a launch date." And I said, "But I can't." And he's like, "Well, you're obviously doing something wrong. So if you haven't reached your launch date and you have to push it back more than once," because I was like, "Well, I've already missed 3 launch dates." And he said to me, he said, "Well, why is that?" And I'm like, "Because if you don't have someone turn up in the morning, it doesn't matter how
Yeah,
much you want to get out of bed and how much you've got to do. If you don't have the support in place, you can't do and achieve what you need to in that day. Like, there's so
yeah,
much we don't have control of that we
mm,
can't necessarily navigate." Um,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think yeah, like you just need people around you, I guess, that will understand that. And like that was
mm,
obviously the wrong advisor because that was bad advice. It
mm,
was like off base. It's a different person's perspective, and like
mm,
you can take that and be like, okay, well, I understand that that's sometimes how things work, but then
mm,
actually there's soft launches and there's hard launches, and
mm,
he was talking about a hard launch, and so disabled people adapt, and we do soft launches, and you just hope for the best, um, and yeah, so I think just, when there are disappointments, there are
mm,
going to be disappointments that you don't achieve a
mm,
deadline, and something doesn't happen the way you
mm,
want. And that happens in business anyway,
mm,
like there's things happening now where I'm relying on someone to collect data
mm,
in Australia, and they've been really unwell.
mm,
They're not disabled, but they've just been really unwell, and so deadlines get pushed back, and it's a little bit embarrassing. But you just have to you just keep moving forward, and you just do your best every day. And like I said earlier, I think if you have this goal in mind and you don't
mm,
put too much pressure on yourself to get to that end goal within a certain time,
mm,
you need to have a general idea of, okay, well, this is going to take roughly this long and
mm,
whatnot, but you just need to keep chipping away whenever
mm,
you feel okay. And I
mm,
think I think you and I do that similarly, where
mm.
you just work unusual hours sometimes
Yep.
because you wanted to work at 2 p.m., but actually you felt okay at 6 p.m.
Mm,
So, okay, I'm going to quickly have dinner and then I actually need to do that email.
mm,
And that's a lot of pressure, and it's not
mm,
for everyone. Some people just
mm,
need 9 to 5 and then they're relaxed at home. But
mm.
that is kind of how I've had to achieve it. For a long time, I was doing a lot of work between 7 and 10 at night. That was when I was most productive.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'd still have to. Luckily, I have support workers in the sense that they're kind of like obligated. They need to have a period of 8 hours
Mm,
that they're doing the sleepover
mm,
shift, and so I actually need to get in bed. Otherwise, I'd probably be doing all nighters, and it would be really
mm,
bad for me.
mm,
So that's actually quite good that I have that structure forced upon
mm,
me that I need to
mm,
get some sleep.
mm.
But yeah, you just kind of hustle when you kind of have that mindset of something that's really important to you. It's really important
Yeah.
to me personally. It's really important to my family potentially. If I do it well, it could
Mm,
work out well financially.
mm,
And then it's really important to the community. So those things just drive me to just
mm,
keep chipping away whenever I
mm,
can.
mm. I think you raise a really good point. That it's not for some people 9 to 5 works really well, and that structure is great, but for others it's a real battle.
Yeah,
I have no predictability in my day. I can have my day set up. I wake up in the morning throwing my guts out, and so it doesn't matter how much I want to work. I can start work, but
mm,
I'm not actually going to be able to give my best.
mm,
Whereas if I can push that back, I know that and like yourself, when I get that moment and I'm in the zone, I'm just like, man, I'm off. Like, I'd
yeah,
rather give my best to something when I can than give a subpar version of myself because I'm like um, there's, it's a challenge, and I think it's a constant. It means that I often end up working on weekends and late nights and stuff like that.
yeah,
But
mm,
I don't want my disability and my own personal challenges to take away from what I want to be doing and what's important to me.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it, has a big influence on what you find as valuable or important.
Mm,
Um, I think you when you have these barriers that you're really passionate about overcoming,
mm,
life's a, life can be a lot more purposeful and give you more purpose
mm,
and motivation to break those barriers down for
mm,
yourself and others. Um, and also the other strategy I have is
mm,
I'll have tasks that I need to be
mm,
on my game for, like
mm,
emails and talking to
mm,
people. And then I have really monotonous tasks because I'm working with data a lot. And if I'm not feeling well, I put my hood up and I sit in front of the TV
mm,
and I work because I get all sweaty when I'm not feeling well
mm,
and have a towel near me and I just kind of chip away,
mm.
and you
Yeah.
just kind of do these boring, monotonous tasks when you're not feeling well. And,
Mm,
other times I'll just do nothing, of course, but I try to set things up that way as well that I can be doing something productive when I'm not
mm.
feeling well.
My
But
favorite
yeah,
thing.
it's also good to be kind on yourself as well.
Mm,
Yeah.
my favorite thing is to put a movie on and just chip away at stuff while I'm doing a few different
Yeah.
things. But it sometimes doesn't feel like work for me when I'm doing things in business and community or supporting others. Um, it's my fire, it's my light, it's my spark.
Mm.
It's what brings joy, and distraction, I think, too, is key. If I focus on
Yeah.
my own world, I drown. I can't cope when I look at my situation and my reality and what I'm navigating. But if I can look outside and look at what's in my hands and what can I do with what's in my hands, that changes day to day. But when I look outside of my world into the world of others, and see what can I do with what's in my hands, and how do I be involved, um, allows me control in a situation that I often feel like I don't have a lot control.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that yeah, I kind of have sometimes when I look at what I've achieved, it feels different. It feels like separated from me in a way because
Mm,
then if you do I think about my disability and the amount of challenges I have and
mm,
how little I can physically do for myself,
mm,
it is hard not to think of yourself as not being able to do much.
mm,
Um, I look at what I actually do, just by chipping away at things that are
mm,
important to me. It's crazy. It's yeah, it's kind of, I just sort of reflect on that. It's like a
mm,
weird feeling that you can feel quite disabled at
mm,
times, but then when you're focusing on stuff you can do and not focusing on stuff
mm,
you can't do,
mm,
then you don't feel disabled at all. You just
mm,
are busy in your zone,
mm,
and in the flow of 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 being really passionate about something and motivated. And yeah, I think that is yeah, I wouldn't have good well-being if I didn't have things to focus on and
mm,
distract myself from my disability at times. But yeah, just I mean, I just want a good life, right? And so
mm,
the best way to
mm.
have a good life
Get
um,
involved.
is to be successful and
Mm,
and have a family. And
mm,
so for the family thing,
mm,
to start a family is and find a partner is just as hard as
mm,
maintaining that relationship.
mm.
And so I think that's
Did
something I
you
really want. Yeah, I
did you want to
really want.
touch on that and explore that?
Yeah, yeah. So I really wanted a partner, and so just like these other things, it feels like an unobtainable goal to have a
Mm,
wife and a kid eventually.
mm,
But what do I do in this day to get closer to that goal? And so download Tinder and swipe right on everyone if that's the right way. I haven't done it for a while.
yeah.
Um, and just put yourself out there
Mm,
and just try be brave and fake it till you make it and have some disaster dates, but you kind of build confidence from that in a way. Um,
so do
and
you
so, yeah,
build confidence though? I
well, it's
had
hard
some very
sometimes.
interesting experiences, and I was just like, you know what, I tap out. Like, I'm done.
Yeah,
How do you? And there's a really big question a lot of people ask. Is that how do you handle the disability conversation? Do you put your photo on it, or do you not put anything on
yeah,
it? Do you tell them the
I
first
did.
time, or do you not?
Yeah, yeah, I owned it. I just put it in my photos, and because I just couldn't bear that conversation. I think of,
Mm,
oh, by the way, I'm disabled, and oh, okay, well, sorry, I'm not interested anymore. I
mm,
think that would have been very hard for me. I would have liked just straight up to know if
Mm.
they know I'm in a wheelchair, and
Mm.
sure, I got friend zoned a lot more than I would have liked, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm not interested in dating, but like I'm keen to be your friend," and I was like, "I've actually got heaps of friends. I don't need it." So thank you, but no, thank you. And so I think just it's like hard to be
Mm.
confidence is key.
Mm.
It's really hard to be confident as a non-disabled person, let
Mm.
alone a disabled person.
Mm.
It is largely fake it till you make it, but I think it does work out that you do end up making it because people see that you're confident, and
Mm.
like you see confident people out,
Mm.
and you're like, wow, how are they? How are they like that sort of thing? Like, how can they be confident? I was like that for a long time. I wasn't very confident. Um, but just like once you do it and it's out in the world, people see you
Mm.
as confident, and then you're
Mm.
continuing to act confident,
Mm.
and then I think that's really attractive for people is to see someone who's like happy in themselves, or not even necessarily happy, but like comfortable with themselves
Mm.
and like kind of having a direction in life is really important as
Mm.
well. So yeah, I just put myself out there and just tried, and you just have to kind of when there's a fail, you kind of have to just put that on them, and
Yeah.
you just have to like make that an external thing, not an
Mm.
internal thing. And
Mm.
yeah,
I
it's easier said than
mm.
done, but that's the key,
Yeah.
I think.
I had a couple. I didn't go on any dates at all. I literally only had messages. But I decided that I would pursue. I decided that I would pursue life and live full life. That someone would have to chase life to chase me.
Yeah.
They would have to pursue and find life, and that I would find someone out living life and being confident in who I am. And it took someone whacking me over the head with a hammer, really, to be like, because I was like, there's this guy hanging around. I'm like, I think he likes me, and everyone around me, like, no shit, dude. Like, sorry, language. Like, you are late to the party. You're really
Yeah.
late to the party. And I was like, oh, really? Um, but it, but for me, like he already knew I had my disability. And I was out running a space at a music festival to make it fully inclusive for other people. And it was an incredible journey. But uh, yeah, it's a hard one. I spent 10 years going, and so many well-meaning people would be like, who would want to be with you? Like, really? Like, no one wants to take that on. Who's ever going to want to take that on? And you're just like, come on, man. Like, I don't think we help each other sometimes, like, and our
Mhm.
friends and family at times, as well-meaning as people might be. And he had a lot of pushback too, actually, by people being like, really? Do you really? And like I think it's unfortunate because he's like, damn, you don't know what you're talking about. Like
Mm.
the disability is
Yeah.
nothing. And it's taken some navigation, and we spend a lot of time in hospital, but we laugh and we giggle, and we have fun, and it doesn't define the relationship. Um,
Yeah.
but how did a relationship happen for you in the end? Like how did how
Mm.
did you find someone? Was it through Tinder?
Not in the end. I had some good dates and I met some nice people through that. But yeah,
Mm.
just to reflect, I also had the same experience where like I'd ask friends to like I was like, often when I had a couple of drinks,
Mm.
which don't recommend to young people, but that was what was happening. And and I was like to my friends, hook me up with your friends kind of thing. And like it was discouraging when they wouldn't, or I'd kind of like, oh yeah, and you could tell that they were like, yeah, they wouldn't necessarily say it to my face, but you could tell they were like, well, good luck with that kind of thing. And then yeah, with her friends and family, there was some like, are you sure? Like, and I think to a point it's okay. It's just like,
Mm.
you know, you're aware of the reality. Yes,
Mm.
okay, great. Go ahead with it. Um, but yeah, there was some, and it's already hard enough for me to convince her, let alone like against her friends. So that's not ideal. But no, lots. 90% of her friends were actually amazing, and I think
Yeah.
without that, I wouldn't have been with my partner Erica. But we ended up meeting in person, which was really cool. Which is like
Mm.
what are the chances in the day and age of
Mm.
Tinder? Um, but yeah, we were in our educational psychology class, and
Mm.
so it was actually it was perfect. It was, because we were studying the same thing, we had the same values, and we cared about education and young people, and that often meant that you care about people who are less fortunate,
Mm.
and you want to help them, and so I think we shared that, and we introduced ourselves in class to everyone, and we realized we had a common history of spending time in Canada, and
Mm.
then yeah, I just had to be confident. And
Mm.
when I saw her leaving class, I quickly like left and was like, "Hey, can you open the door for me?" And then and so you just kind of have to take your opportunities, eh? And then afterwards, I Facebook messaged her, and she didn't see it for 3 weeks because it was in your other
Yeah.
folder. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. We'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And then she replied, and yeah, we had a couple of dates and just hit it off. So yeah, it was cool how it ended up working out. But yeah, it's lucky to find someone in person these days. You just kind of have to
Mm.
be prepared for online and hope for the best in
Mm.
real life. And when there are opportunities, you just go for it. And being rejected sucks, but you only need one person to say yes.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, and then after that, now I'm like, forget about all, don't have to worry about any of that rejection. It was all worth it. So
Mm.
it is hard, but you just keep going, and you only need to find one person.
Mm. I wanted to reflect back for a moment, back to so you had an accident,
Yeah.
an injury. Um, in the time after your injury, did you ever imagine that you would be where you are now, or as a young
Yeah.
person even before your injury? Like, do
Yeah.
you yeah.
I I guess I did it in the way I had like a vision board in my mind,
Mm.
of like what would be a good life for me.
Mm.
I'd have a family, a good career
Mm.
that I was happy in.
Mm.
I'd have an accessible home, um, that's warm. It's like the main thing.
Mm.
And so I always just knew, I guess, deep down that if I didn't believe there was a chance of those things actually happening, I never would have tried
Mm.
to make that happen.
Mm.
Um, but what was really helpful was like seeing other disabled people in hospital that had achieved all of or some of those things.
Mm.
And so really early on, I connected with. It was quite good in Canada at the hospital. They introduced me to other tetraplegics, and back when I was in Middlemore,
Mm.
so I was on a ventilator for all that time. So it seemed like a far way off, but I met people who had been on a ventilator and then weren't anymore, and had a partner and had a job, and I think that was really key. And there was a documentary called Murderball, which some people may be familiar with, but I highly
Mm.
recommend if you haven't.
Mm.
It's about wheelchair rugby. It's what wheelchair rugby was called before they needed sponsors and they had to change the name something more appropriate. And in that movie, it was really cool because they talk about rugby, but they follow the tetraplegics behind it and the lives they've had as well. And so I could see pretty early on that it was possible, and that I and from my psychology studies, I knew the power of belief and
Mm.
and confidence, and
Mm.
a growth mindset rather than a
Mm.
fixed mindset. I think a fixed mindset is the worst thing that can happen to anyone,
Mm.
disabled or not, but it's
Mm.
worse if you're disabled. If you
Mm.
think this is who I am and this is where I'm at, that's it. That's just
Mm.
poison.
Mm.
You just always have to think that you can do better and that your life can be better, and then that's way, way, way more likely to happen.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, I just kind of always held that with me, and um, yeah, I think I shocked some people with my attitude early on, but I think that's 100% why I am where I am today.
Mm. What have
Yeah.
been some of the greatest challenges or stumbling blocks along the way?
So like really early on, I had lots and lots. Like surviving was a really difficult thing. So
Mm.
I was on a ventilator for 5 months, and then I went to rehab for 5 months, and then 3 months, and then 1 month after that for different surgeries. So it was really hard to breathe and eat, and so that was quite a journey. And then after 5 months, when I was breathing, eating, and in a wheelchair, I was like happy as, because I just had those first 5 months was so difficult.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge at the start. Then, throughout the way, like business, there's always stumbling blocks and challenges, running out of money, and you know, not needing a way to go forward, and like trying to balance having a job versus wanting wanting believing in your business and
Mm.
wanting it to succeed. So I did have to
Mm.
cut the first business quits after a while when I just, that was education these days. I just, if I had more money, I still believe it would have been successful, but
Mm.
um, I just didn't have enough to market it and get the word out there enough, and solve a couple of small challenges, and that's really hard to know as well, like when to call it quits and when
Mm.
like to be like, okay, well, I could have just spent another 10,000 over a year. I didn't have a
Mm.
lot, but all my disposable
Mm.
income was going into it, so it might have been 10,000 over a year or so. Um, and I could have just kept sinking that in, but then I had this other idea with Smart Access, and
Mm.
that seemed a bit more commercially viable, so had to focus on that. That was a big stumbling block, like that whole journey, and like that was I ran for council because I believed in what my platforms, but also I needed a job and it paid well
Mm.
being a councillor.
Mm.
So that was like a big chunk of why I put myself out there. So that was
Mm.
all that whole time was a big stumbling block. Like it's really kind of only been honestly in the last year, 18 months with this job and
Mm.
Smart Access picking up that I've actually kind of felt a bit more comfortable about my position and like
Mm.
feeling like I have some sort of job security and like not just hustling the whole time.
Mm.
Um, so it's been like, yeah, just constant barriers until physical and attitudinal and economic. Like there's just
Mm.
barriers every day, but yeah, you just kind of have to keep going through them, I guess.
Um, what would you tell yourself if you had the opportunity to go back and tell that person that was in that bed, or that young person that was running around and skiing in Canada and that kind of thing? Like, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah,
Or what would you wish you could tell other young people if you had a platform, as you do now,
yeah,
to share your learnings and your gold with other young people
yeah. Like it
and
is
older?
pretty. Yeah, yeah. I think it'd be pretty cliche my things, but hopefully my like what I've talked about today kind of back those up. But it's you need to believe in yourself and you need to keep going. Like
Mm.
that's kind of it.
Mm.
You could believe in yourself and keep going and still fail if your luck isn't on your side. There is some element of
Mm.
luck, of course, but eventually you'll succeed if you keep trying. And um, yeah, just having that growth mindset and just chipping away. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like having what your final goal you want to
Mm.
be is important too. Like
Mm.
um, it has to be something that's achievable without
Mm.
too much of a budget. If you don't have much money, like you do kind of need to orientate yourself around your reality to a
Mm.
degree, but then I think you can extend that what is possible for you with
Mm.
that drive and determination.
Mm.
um, and again, that's really hard, especially when you're disabled and you have all these other barriers. But
Mm.
like, hopefully, by seeing people through this podcast who have achieved those
Mm.
and faced all those barriers,
Mm.
um, I think that will help a lot. Hopefully, with people realizing that they can do it, they just need to start. First
Mm.
of all, start. Don't think, okay, I've got this idea. I'm gonna think about that and maybe in the future I'll do it. Just get on the internet, start researching about it,
Mm.
and just start writing stuff down
Mm.
and just keep going.
How much do you think community and the people who've played around you have played a part in you being able to be as successful as you have been?
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, it's it is like, from the people who do the rubbish to the roads and
Mm.
you need a huge community around you. Not
Mm.
even just your immediate family and friends, but just like a community in general, and like people who think you don't need to pay taxes is like ridiculous to me. Like you need a society to be well functioning. And I've always, been fairly politically active for that reason. I think, like,
Mm,
for people to, I'm really passionate about. I think it comes down to, I'm passionate about equality of opportunity. I want
mm,
people to have the same opportunity, whatever their life circumstances are, and I think that's
mm,
just good for the country. I don't even think it's like a charitable thing to
mm,
be like that. I think everyone is definitely better off if, you know, random kid from a poor neighborhood is able to be a CEO.
mm,
That's better for everyone.
mm.
Um, and so um, that drives me. What was the question again?
Yeah, just that. Do you think communities played a part? I often say
Yeah.
in my own world, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but I say it takes a community to hold a Kylie.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Um,
Um,
there's been times, and I'm really lucky to be in this position. My parents aren't really well off, but there's been times where I've run out of money and I've needed $2,000 or something, and like a lot of, that's quite a lot of money for a lot of
mm,
families, and like my parents are like, okay, well you've got to pay me back, and like they're serious, like that's a lot of money to them as well,
yeah,
but they did have it available to lend me
yeah,
at times when I got really stuck. And I think, like, that's one thing, money, but then also, um, you know, especially socially, like I
mm,
really needed my big supportive friends group around me to
mm,
be probably happy enough with my social
mm,
life to then be also, confident and happy in my personal life. Like I'm a strong believer that like confidence in one part of your life, will
mm.
really translate into confidence in all parts of your life. So
And
yeah,
it sounds like you said yes to a lot of opportunities that came by your way as well. Paying and
yeah,
not paying, getting involved in community organizations or saying yes to events or yes to things in your world to open your world to other people. Um,
yeah,
Isolation, I think, is a killer for any of us,
mm,
and disconnection from community. But it sounds like,
yeah,
yeah, community played a big, or engaging in spaces created the opportunities for you to step into other roles. They haven't come by through applying for a job, for example. It's
yeah.
been small steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I guess there's like a few different levels to community. That's kind of that wider view I was talking about,
Mm,
the kind of micro version with the immediate family. That's really important. And then yeah, like I 100% wouldn't um, be where I am in terms of my life, my voice, Magical Bridge, Smart Access if it wasn't for community members like Jerry Pomeroy in
mm,
particular, but also, Helena and um, Jean and Terry and these other, Rodney Bell, Angela Demaray, Peter Van Vernhoven, all these people who are involved in this other mahi that I was involved with for it to be successful, um, and to move forward with it. So yeah, there's kind of like the wider society, the wider, and then the community, and then your immediate family and friends, and all of them are crucial in different ways.
and having, I guess, people see value in you and seeing and
Yeah,
calling out that in you and creating opportunities. And it just shows how important looking for people that are coming up in leadership as well and giving opportunities to each other and allowing people to step forward and shine.
definitely. Yeah, like you said before, yeah, I said yes to a lot of things, and whatever I had capacity, I just, at a point, like it's kind of been a skill I've learned to say no.
Mm,
It's just so I can be successful in kind of the three areas I am now. Like, for a while there were all these different task forces, and if I
mm,
felt like I could give value, it's really hard to say no. And so you can kind of like put too much on yourself then. But yeah, no, it's all doing those things, um and doing them well. As if you say yes to something, I think you still need, pardon me, you still need to be able to commit to it and do it
mm,
well, or you probably won't be offered another
mm,
opportunity in the future. So,
mm,
like, not only saying yes and taking those opportunities, but really being like, okay, this is a really important opportunity for me to show
mm,
what I can do.
mm,
Um, and like realizing, you're kind of talking to yourself on the way to a
mm,
certain meeting and being like, wow, this one's actually, this one's pivotal, and
mm,
just putting everything you have into it.
mm,
I think that's really important as well.
And how have you learned to say no over the time?
Just by like running out of time and just being like starting to get really stressed and like
Yeah.
then having to like spend less time with family or something and being like, oh, I don't like that, you know.
Mm.
And so it's like one or the other really. And
Mm.
so luckily I didn't get to the point where I was like completely burnt out and like I never let it get that far, but there
Mm.
were times where I was feeling burnout and feeling overly stressed and like things were too much and just said, okay, I need to take a step back.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of how it worked out.
Mm. That whole I've got a saying that I use in my own world, but one step at a time, and soon enough when we look back, each of those little steps have turned into miles, and we've come further than we ever thought we could.
Totally, totally. Yeah, yeah, all those little steps. Yeah, it's crazy to look back. Um, I'm 35 now, so like for the last 15 years since my accident,
Mm.
um, been hustling nonstop, and
Mm.
yeah, to if I looked at all of that in like one thing, it's like impossible. But you know, you break down what you do by month or by week, and all those little steps of yeah, they've turned
Mm.
into miles.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, two last things before we wrap up. What's your hope and dream for the future?
Um, my hope and dream for the future is that we have so like for smart access, they're kind of broken down. But you know, first the overall dream is that everyone has the same opportunities, regardless of where they come from. Um, for the disability community, I think you know for smart access, I've found it's really important that people can get to where they want to go
Mm.
and that they know where there's barriers in the physical environment so they
Mm.
can make plans.
Mm.
That's important. So I want to see that all over the world, but first all over Australia and New Zealand, where you going somewhere and you're not scared of going there. You're not worried about it because you know what's there when you're going to get there, and like the different you can plan where you're going to go toilet or like where you're going to park and everything. Um, you know, I really want to see for my life, my voice. I want to see a huge community for disabled people. Whoever wants to be part of it, you don't have to. If you're on your own journey, that's fine. But if you think if there's value in disabled people talking to each other, I want to see everyone talking and just sharing those gems. And I really want to see more disabled people in leadership opportunities, not necessarily in the disability sector, because
Mm.
kind of the only inclusive industry at the moment.
Mm.
Um, and so, you know, I want to see that. I want to see disabled people and other people of, you know, other marginalized groups in those board positions
Mm.
across the landscape.
Mm.
And I think that's what's going to be really key to providing that equality of opportunity to other people coming up, because they're going to understand the barriers and help break them down from
Mm.
positions of power.
Mm.
So yeah, that's probably enough of those.
That's awesome. Um, and being able to access playgrounds around New Zealand and
Yeah,
Australia, and
yeah,
not have that be a barrier that we face now moving forward as well.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy through that we've found, you know, because I had my accident as a adult, and just
Mm.
hearing about the amount of people who were disabled as children, not ever being on a playground, and some of them didn't even like. It never got to the point where they thought they should be able to. It was like that was something for other kids. Like
Mm.
that's what breaks me when it's like
Mm.
when um when people, because that's why I keep talking about like having that drive and confidence to do better. I think that's so key. But some people get so broken down time after time, and and then just don't even they can't try. So I think that's really hard, and that's not their fault. And you know it would happen to anyone being broken down that many times. So I think it's just like good to help lift those people up and give them a bit of opportunity so they can get on that positive feedback loop of
Mm.
achieving and confidence and building and
Mm.
going further and further forward. So
Mm.
yeah.
Amazing. Is there any other last words of wisdom or gold that you would like to share? Or any parting words or
Um,
anything that's not been said?
I think that's pretty much everything. But we had spoken in the past, just about like how when I was in hospital on a ventilator, I was having all these like panic attacks and anxiety
Mm,
attacks. I was in enclosed rooms and I couldn't move.
mm,
Um, and I guess just like no matter how hopeless things seem
mm,
at a time, like
mm,
it, there you can things will improve if you
mm,
kind of are able to work yourself into that positive mindset. And just yeah, just trying to have hope for the future. I know it's easier said than done, but it can happen if you're always striving to achieve better and you're taking steps to achieve that goal.
mm,
Your life will be better than if you didn't do those things. So
mm,
yeah, just want to keep give people hope, I guess.
mm. Tim, thank you so much for being with us today for this podcast interview. It's incredible to hear your story and see some of the background of where you've come from and how each of those small steps have added up.
Mm,
How positive mind frame and the mind frame we put ourselves in can play a huge part in also each of those little tasks. And just sticking to the
yeah.
little tasks each day can help to get us where we want to be, relying on community and those around us, and just each moment at a time.
Hmm.
And so, thank you for the wisdom, tools, and pearls you've shared, and a bit about how you've got to where you've got. And we look forward to continuing to watch you and see where you continue to go and see Smart Access grow and the work of My Life, My Voice. So, thank you very much for having and being here with us today. And we look forward to, yeah, seeing you and hearing from our next guest next month also. Thank you for your time, Tim, and have a wonderful afternoon.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Carly.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bye.